Hi, I'm Hannah.
And I'm Matt Hannah.
And this is Horror Hour with the Hannahs,
where we talk about all your favorite scary movies.
And this week we are talking about one of our favorite scary movies, Hereditary.
One of our favorite. We say that about everything we watch.
I know, but this one is for real, for real.
Oh yeah, it's a good one.
Hereditary is a 2018 horror film written and directed by Ari Aster in his feature directorial debut, starring Toni Collette, Alex Wolff, and Millie Shapiro. It made over $82 million on its $10 million budget, becoming A24's highest-grossing film ever at the time, a record that was held for 4 years until the release of Everything Everywhere All at Once.
And that still holds the record?
Fuck, dude, I didn't look that up.
I just assumed.
I was looking up this one.
I'm saying right now it still holds the record. I'm pretty sure it does.
Well,
what else would have made the same amount of money?
Yeah, it's a good point. Something I thought was really interesting is that this was critically extremely well received, yet audiences polled by CinemaScore gave the film an average grade of, guess.
C.
D minus.
D minus? Yeah, well,
no, D plus. I'm a liar.
Audiences don't know what's good for them.
I think that's legitimately insane behavior.
There's actually a lot of reasons why that happened, though. There was a lot of discussion about this. It's because there were three types of people that saw the movie, right? So there were people that liked scary movies, saw it, and thought it was scary and liked it. That was probably 1/3. There are people that liked scary movies, saw it, and thought it wasn't scary and dumb, so they gave it a bad.
I can't process that.
We saw it with a friend that felt that way.
Yeah, and I can't process that.
And then there were people that probably don't like scary movies that saw it and were scared by it and really unsettled and disturbed, so they also gave it poor reviews. So there you go. Only 33% of people would have been for this movie, right? If I'm generalizing all those, then that would make sense. You'd be in the D range. But yeah, I would say that it did its job for over 60-something% of the people, almost 70%, in being scary.
Yeah.
And unsettling and disturbing. So that's why you can't trust audience scores.
The Witch and It Comes at Night had a similar thing where, critically, it was they were acclaimed, and then audiences gave them booty ass.
Yeah, audiences are idiots. I'm sorry, I side with the critics most of the time.
So you did mention that we saw this in theaters.
Yeah, we did.
I would like to talk a little bit more about my experience, because beyond just seeing it in theaters with you, I had originally heard about this movie because a trailer was played in Australia before a PG-rated family film. And
I remember this.
Yeah, so it was shown to family audiences and over 30 children, which created a panic in the Australian theater. So that was the first time I heard about this movie. And then I heard it was scary as fuck. And I was really nervous about seeing it because I really felt like this was going to drive me absolutely insane and I'd never sleep again. And before we saw it in theaters, I read the entire plot because I thought it was a good excuse.
Because I was planning on seeing it without you.
Yeah. And so I thought if I read the plot, I had an excuse to not go. But then I was so confused because this story really is kind of two different there's two different films kind of in this one film that tie together very well, and I was really fucking confused by that. So then I still saw the movie, and
I remember you telling me that, and it made me more excited to see it because I thought the trailers were incredible, and I was really excited.
They were.
We didn't know who Ari Aster was at the time. So.
Well, because it was his feature film debut, so of course we didn't.
Yep. But we've now watched... Well, we still haven't watched Beau is Afraid, so we suck. So but we did watch his student thesis film, and it was good.
Yeah.
It was really disturbing.
There's a lot to say about that. I am really intrigued by some of the discussion about how it could be seen as problematic, actually, his thesis, but we don't really need to get into that now.
Yeah. Go watch it. It's on YouTube. I forget what it's called.
And then let us know what you think, and if we should do a mini-sode on it. But, yeah. So... we both had seen this movie before. This is our third time watching it.
I'm more than 3. Maybe
It's
third
my
time.
third
Maybe third time
time.
watching it together. I've probably watched it
When else
5
did you
times.
watch
I watched it
it?
with my mom.
Oh, okay.
I'm sure I was like, "Hey, watch this movie."
Okay.
I don't know
I've
if you
seen
were
it
there.
3 because it took me a while after the first watch.
Yeah.
I think I didn't watch it again
Wait.
until 2021.
I need to say, as a recommendation, the best recommendation we can give this movie is after Hannah saw it, she was like, "I never want to see that movie ever again."
Ever again.
And we kind of did
like,
have the
that's
3 camps of
fucking
people.
disturbing.
You were like, "I never want to watch it again," so you liked it, but a lot of people felt that way and gave it a bad score. I really enjoyed it, and Noah, our friend who maybe is listening, thought it sucked.
Noah, I just want you to know you still have some of the worst opinions of any person I know.
I hope he's listening. I'll tell him we shout him out. We should have him on. He'd be great to have on.
Yeah, he'd be a little bitch just like Jason normally is, I
Yep,
would
true.
guess. Noah and I had this
Jason
beef.
Farkas.
The hater.
The
yeah.
hater. Jason the hater. Yeah.
Yeah, Noah and I had this beef in college where if we disagreed on an opinion, I would just tell him he was factually incorrect.
He'd get really mad.
And he would get really mad because he's like, that's called an opinion. And I was like, yeah,
Well, you have the wrong one.
yeah, first of all, you're still wrong. But 2, yeah, I know the difference, honey. Well, after all of that preamble, let's get into the damn thing and do our 15-second summaries.
Oh, okay. I'm down.
This is going to be bad. I just know it. I'm not going to do a good job. So I'm going to make you go first, as per usual.
Okay.
Go.
A lady who makes puppets gets puppeted by a group of people, and her whole family become puppets. That's all I'm going to say.
Nice.
They're not puppets, they're miniatures, but easier way to explain.
Okay. I'm so fucked. Okay, I'm nervous.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Go.
A weird girl who likes to decapitate birds got the death she wanted by being decapitated by a pole, and then her mom really struggles with her loss, and there is occult stuff.
That's it.
I don't know.
Actually, she's a boy. In the wrong body.
Yeah,
Come on.
she's a boy in the wrong body. You're right. Wow, LGBTQ theming I didn't think about.
Yeah, no, I thought about yes, yeah, very much so. I don't know if I can do it justice to talk about that part,
I certainly
though.
can't right now.
But no,
Maybe in our
we can touch on
revisited
it.
episode, but
No, when we get to themes, we can do a quick touch on it.
yeah, I didn't really process that through. There's lots of Hannah Hides and screams this week. This is like
Did I yell at all? No, you screamed.
this is like a record
We
breaker.
probably did that when we saw it in theaters. This was another one I feel like you were ready to walk out on in the theaters.
Yeah, I was not vibing. So I had 6 Hannah Hyde count.
Damn.
When what's her name? Charlie cuts the bird's neck off. When Charlie gets decapitated. When it later goes back and shows Charlie's head in the road covered in bugs. There's another scene where we see bugs all over Peter.
You don't like bugs?
No. When Charlie's spirit was coloring.
Yeah.
That really freaked me the fuck
There's a
out.
couple good jumps in this one, too.
When Charlie was in Peter's room. And then when Tony Collette is on the ceiling when Peter sees his burnt dad.
All right. Lots of spoilers since I haven't done the plot description yet.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's fine. Screams, I had 5.
Do you actually go I didn't realize we haven't had this many that you actually go through and talk about where your screams
I
were.
haven't in the past
Oh, you haven't?
necessarily. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't, but I actually wrote all of them down.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
Something that really disturbs me in this movie is every time Charlie goes,
'Cause I was going to say, I was worried you'd peek the mic doing that.
her clucks are goddamn horrifying to me. I don't know why.
I used to do it all the time
Yeah,
after
it
the
was
movie, and it scared
fucked
you.
up. So there's like one scene where is it Pete? No, it's mom's driving, Annie's driving, and all of a sudden you just hear and holy balls, that was awful. And then most of the rest of my screams were like towards the end when like Tony Collette is like lurking in his bedroom, and then when Tony's on the ceiling, and then when there's naked people just randomly in the corner, and then when Tony's like piano wiring her neck. So the end really just
Hell
got
yeah.
me a lot.
The end was really scary. This movie does, and I've used this term a lot, but like accelerates, I think, in a really good way, and it's paced well, where it's like kind of like building up to this like insane finale. With a lot of like kind of slow tension. And I like it, other than some bombastic scenes like when Charlie loses her head.
Yeah.
But all right, let me do the full plot read and then let's talk more about it.
My bad.
It's okay, you're fine. I'll speed read once again.
Do it.
All right, you ready? Okay, miniature artist Annie lives with her husband Steve, their 16-year-old son Peter, and their 13-year-old daughter Charlie. The family attends the funeral of Annie's mother Ellen, at which Annie is surprised at the number of mourners in attendance. She attends a bereavement support group revealing her troubled childhood and that she and her mother had a fraught relationship until Charlie was born. Meanwhile, Steve receives a phone call telling him that an unknown perpetrator has desecrated Ellen's gravesite, but does not reveal this to Annie. Peter's invited to a party, and Annie insists that Charlie go with him. At the party, Peter leaves Charlie unattended. She eats some chocolate cake with walnuts in it and goes into anaphylactic shock. Peter drives Charlie to the hospital. She leans out the window for air. Peter swerves to avoid a deer lying in the road, and she is decapitated by a telephone pole. In shock, Peter drives home and leaves Charlie's headless body in the backseat of his parents' car, which Annie discovers the following morning. Following Charlie's death, Annie becomes resentful towards Peter. A traumatized Peter drifts through life in a daze, and Steve tries to continue life as normal. Annie befriends a support group member named Joan. Joan teaches Annie to perform a seance to communicate with Charlie's ghost. Later that night, Annie convinces her family to attempt the seance. Objects begin to move and smash, and Peter is terrified when Annie is possessed and speaks in Charlie's voice. Peter begins to be haunted by supernatural forces, and Annie suspects Charlie's spirit has become vengeful and demonic. When she sees images manifesting in Charlie's sketchbook threatening Peter, she throws the book in the fireplace. However, her clothing goes up in flames at the same time as the book does. Her clothes only stop burning when she pulls the book from the flames. Annie goes through her mother's old belongings and finds a photo album that shows Ellen to have been Queen Lee, the leader of a coven, and Joan, one of the acolytes. Another book describes the demon king Payman, who wishes to inhabit the body of a male host. The summoner of Payman will receive wealth and rewards. In the attic, Annie finds Ellen's rotting, decapitated body. While Peter is outside his school, Joan appears and attempts to expel his spirit from his body for the Demon King. In class, Peter is taken over by an unseen force and slams his head against the desk, breaking his nose. Annie informs Steve of her ties to Charlie's sketchbook and begs him to burn it, as she cannot bring herself to take her own life. When he refuses, she snatches the book from him and flings it into the fire, only for Steve to burst into flames instead. Naked coven members begin gathering, both inside and around the house. Peter wakes after dark and finds his father's charred corpse, then quickly notices one of the coven members in a nearby doorway. A now-possessed Annie then chases him through the house. He attempts to hide in the attic. Annie follows him and then beheads herself with a piece of piano wire. Peter jumps from the attic window. A glowing orb enters and reanimates his body. Now displaying Charlie's mannerisms, he follows Annie's floating headless corpse into Charlie's treehouse, where Joan and other members of the coven, as well as the headless corpses of Peter's mother and grandmother, are worshipping a mannequin with Charlie's crowned, severed head placed on it. Joan removes the crown and places it on Peter's head, addressing him as Charlie. She then proclaims that Charlie is Payman. They have corrected his female body and given him a preferred male host, and the coven hail Peter as King Payman. Hail Payman.
Fucking horrifying.
Yeah, I liked your sound effects as I was reading.
Because this...
You're adding some
this shit is horrifying.
It doesn't sound scary when you read it.
I thought it sounded scary when I read it before seeing the movie. Maybe because you sped read it. Didn't sound scary.
I can't even comprehend what I'm reading when I do it like that.
Yeah, that's fair.
I'm good at reading out loud, apparently. Only a couple ums. Only a couple stutters. Impressive.
Maybe you have a talent.
You
should be like in broadcasting.
Yeah. That's a good idea. All right. So, is it general thoughts time? Do you like this movie?
It's a good movie.
It is good.
Fucking horrifying ass movie.
It has one of my favorite performances of my lifetime, which is Toni Collette in this.
Give that woman a retroactive Oscar.
Yeah, this is just a clear indication that like there is bias for horror movies in the Oscars. I mean, who cares what the Oscars really? But like, I'm gonna care because Toni Collette is super talented. Gives, I think, one of the most like gut wrenching performances I've seen, and just not even a nomination. And
yeah, it was ridiculous.
It was really upsetting. I think this movie is quite scary, really disturbing. And like really like checks all the boxes for I think what you would want out of like I want to say out of a possession movie, but it's a possession movie that is like does more than just be a regular possession movie. And I think that's really cool. About a haunted family, it's like Insidious could never.
Oh my god, you're so obsessed with shit talking Insidious.
No, I know, but I just do think that's like the haunted genre, or excuse me, the possession genre, I think, of Insidious. But like this is a almost twist on it in some ways, which I think is really cool.
But like elevated.
Stop, I don't like that term.
Okay, but this really is like The Witch, this...
We killed the term elevated horror.
Kings of the elevated horror subgenre.
I can have a 15-minute podcast on that term being dumb. I'm not going to do it here.
Yeah, but I will say that's kind of like my favorite.
It's just a good horror
subgenre of horror.
Okay, fine. Anything's elevated horror. The way we talk about it, I found good themes and everything. So
Insidious Everything's is elevated horror. Then
it sure is.
Annabelle's not.
Annabelle, well, it's if it's elevated horror, it's disgusting, and
that's how I feel about really Malignant, awful. You little bitch.
No, anyway, yeah, not nearly as bad.
I don't know.
Okay.
Anyway, yeah, this movie makes me want to throw up, but in a good way.
Yeah, that's the best way to describe it.
Yeah, I think the cinematography in this movie is perfect.
Very specifically, if this counts as cinematography, right? These shots, Annie does miniatures, right? And she's got all the houses. And the very opening shot of the film is clearly shot to look like a miniature.
Yes.
And then it becomes their home. And throughout the film, they frame a lot of establishing shots as what her miniatures look like, which is supposed to be symbolic of how the family is being puppeted by this coven and everything's being controlled. Like they're not really in control of their own lives. I think that's super clever. Yeah, it's cinematography. That's using the camera work to tell a story, right?
Yeah. And I think this movie is a master of that. I also just think that, like, the lighting, the camera angles and movements, all of that is just so, like, expertly done and deliberate.
Ari Aster's really talented.
I read before, like, they started doing anything, he'd already written out his shot list.
Oh, I gotcha.
Like, very deliberate.
I'm trying to think. There's a lot of directors are really different about that, and I can't remember. There's like a Scorsese and Spielberg are like very different. One like writes out everything, and the other like shows up and like blocks on that day. I think Spielberg's the blocks day of.
That
like,
tracks for me.
He is like one of the, and that's something about Spielberg. If you don't know, he is the best at moving the camera and blocking people. Like some people are really good at blocking people. Some people are really good at moving the camera. He is like apparently supposedly like the master of combining the two. And I think that's cool. Sorry, random fact. But
cool.
Yes.
Well, this man had all his shots written out.
I think Ari Aster did a good job of both these in this movie as well.
Yeah.
Blocking and movement. Sorry, derailed. This movie is hard to watch in a lot of ways. I think it's like very upsetting. And the Toni Collette giving a performance, her scream cry when she finds out about Charlie's death is God. Like you almost want to like cover your ears. It is so upsetting.
And I think
it's real. Something
I really love about that scene actually is not Toni Collette. It's actually that we see it from the lens of Peter.
Right? Yeah.
We when he when she finds the body, it's just showing Peter in bed, and his face is just kind of like, not unfazed, but he's not like he's still in shock and like not fully processing what's going on. And Jesus, it's like really moving to have it shot like that.
Yeah, it is.
It's very deliberate.
Yeah. And you bring up Peter, and I feel like it's funny we're talking about Toni Collette, and I think she does steal the show, but it's Nat Wolff, right?
So good.
From the Naked Brothers Band. Alex Wolff. It's Alex Wolff from the Naked Brothers Band, if you remember that show.
Side note, when I was little, I watched like an episode. Like I did not watch the show, but I watched an episode, and my brother went to my mom and said, "Mom, Hannah's watching a show about naked people." And I had to say, "Mom, it's on Nickelodeon."
You were not allowed to watch the show after.
No, I just didn't think it was a good show, so I didn't care. But
that's him, and he is really good in this, and I think
he's fucking crushing.
You kind of forget how good he is because Toni Collette is just insane.
I don't know. I think
I just thought of something. Both. Toni Collette in this, or Toni Collette in Knives Out, because she's also so good in that.
This.
You're famous.
I love her vocal fry in that.
She's so good at that.
Like in a complete 180.
She's really talented.
We love her.
Yeah, I do love Toni Collette.
That's Matt's celeb
Toni,
crush.
Come on the pod. Yeah, that's definitely a celeb crush.
Yeah. Something else that I love about this movie is just the eye for details, especially when it comes to foreshadowing. When you rewatch this movie, there are so many small details that you can see very early on that things are awry or that people like in the community might know what's going on. Like right in the funeral scene in the very beginning at Grandma's funeral, people are looking at Charlie kind of weird.
Yep, and that guy shows up at the end as well.
There's like in the very beginning again, you kind of can see someone like watching Charlie at school. They're trying to think what else. There is like the first time that the pole is shown when they're driving down the road before the
they
party.
show the symbol.
They kind of show the pole, the telephone pole.
How about everything about like the mom's family all being messed up? Like her brother took his own life.
It's not saying messed up.
Said like mom was trying to put people in him. Well, mom was trying to. I think it goes
twofold, right?
Yes.
It's like you can interpret it as they had a legitimate mental illness, or you can interpret it as mom was trying to put a demon in her husband and her son because both of them were diagnosed with having hallucinations.
Yeah. Brother was DED, I thought they said.
No,
or
mom is DID.
Oh, no, mom had DID. You're right, sorry.
Which is dissociative identity disorder, for anyone unaware. And the direct quote is, "My mom didn't have an easy life. She had DID, which became extreme at the end. And my father died when I was a baby from starvation because he had psychotic depression and he starved himself. And there's my brother. My older brother had schizophrenia, and when he was 16, he hanged himself in my mother's bedroom, and of course the suicide note blamed her for putting people inside him."
You're right, this does work twofold. It's like they could have mental illness, or it could all just be because this coven was trying to put a demon in them.
And like generational trauma and also hereditary mental illness are big themes in this movie.
So it's twofold, like you said. Very cool. Yeah, this movie is really good. I think it's hard to like rate because though it's like I don't always want to watch it. It's like not one I like want to go out of my way to watch sometimes. But when I do, I always enjoy myself.
I kind of think that's a perfect movie. If I'm being like straight up.
Well, I'll be straight up say I like Midsommar better.
I don't. I like this better.
Wow.
I actually did a poll on our Instagram asking people which one they like better, and it was a pretty even 50-50 split.
Reasonable.
But I think I like this one better. I think overall, it's, for a horror, it certainly scares and disturbs me more. And I do think that some of the cinematography in Midsommar is just like absolutely 10 out of 10 stunning. Like that movie is beautiful and the use of light is very deliberate. But there's something about this one.
Oh no, I get it.
It just makes me feel more.
Yeah, I'm surprised.
And I'm more engaged, I think, for the runtime.
I guess I'm surprised because you were not like born a scary movie lover. And by born, I mean like you didn't like this stuff when you were younger. So like have a movie that is like actually very upsetting to be something you really enjoy, surprising based on what I know of your opinions of other movies. But that's cool. Good for you. I'm happy you like it.
Yeah.
What else do you think this movie did really well? We said cinematography and acting. I loved the plot, to be honest. Like it's so goofy.
Weird.
You mind if I talk about that for a second?
Yeah.
Sorry, I asked you. I really like this. It is like a twist on the normal possession thriller. Like it's about it's not about a family being possessed. It's about a coven trying to create the possession.
Well,
but one of the members is already possessed. Like Charlie is Paimon. From the moment Charlie gets turned into Paimon when she's born, as they say, mom or Ellen, the grandmother, comes back into her life, and mom did not let grandma around Peter at all. Yes. They wanted Peter's body, and mom wouldn't let around. And then when Charlie was born, she's like, you know what? I'll let you have her. And then their mom has some figurines of like grandma breastfeeding Charlie, and like it's very clear that it was a crazy, too close relationship because Charlie has been Paimon since she was born. We'll have to talk about that. And I think that's like a very interesting, like you said, twist on this and from a different angle. And that's cool. I think I haven't seen anything like that before. Yeah. It's a cool plot. What do you think?
It is a really interesting how up until Charlie passes away, you very much just think it's a horror about grief and loss, which it still is. But then Charlie dies, and it's like, boom!
Charlie dying
possession
is crazy.
And, like, seance.
Charlie, that head scene, we had no idea that was coming, because they marketed it.
Well, I knew, because...
Well, they marketed it like Charlie was a big part of the movie.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, you're 30 minutes in or whatever, and
Charlie's
her head goes
dead.
flying off.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. That part, like I said, then you get right back to the part where Peter just drives home in shock, and they shoot all of it, like, from facing his eyes, right, like, facing it, and he gets in bed and just sits there with his eyes open all night, and then, like, the sun comes up, and you hear Mom go to the car and find the body, but you still stay with Peter the whole time. Crazy. This is a wild movie. I, feel like it's hard to talk about, though.
Yeah,
That's
I'm
our
really
job.
struggling to talk about it, actually. Every time you ask me a question, I'm like, oh, duh? Like, I don't know what to say.
Well, we'll have a lot to say in themes, so when we get there.
I feel like I kind of want to just go.
No, let's do.
because
We got to do
it's
favorite
so
scenes.
Tied to, like, the things that I like about this movie will fall under the discussion of themes. So, I'm going to kind of come back to some of those things. But yeah, I can talk about favorite scene, even though I did not think about that ahead of time, because I never do.
I know my favorite scene.
Yeah, go for it.
I always know my favorite scene. Even I didn't think about it either. Favorite shot in the movie is probably Mom's decapitated body floating into the treehouse, because that's the one that that's the one that's burned into my brain that I think about, that scares me. And favorite scene is the ending, when that weird melody is playing as Peter climbs. Now Peter, Charlie, Payman climb into the treehouse where there's two decapitated bodies praying to Charlie's head, and there's all these naked people standing around, and then when they finally do the Hail Payman chant, it keeps pulling out, right? The shot keeps, it's like a medium to like a really far away to even further far away to really show that this treehouse is a dollhouse, like it's a miniature house, because everything has now been put in place. And they show like shots of like Payman now's face, just like looking kind of confused. And it just all comes together in a way that's like, holy shit, what did I just watch?
That like last shot of Alex Wolff as
it's incredible.
Payman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With the beat up nose and the crown on.
I want to be that for Halloween so bad.
I've seen that. I've seen girls do that before.
I really want to do that.
You have to like get makeup to give yourself a black eye.
I really want to do that, or I'll be Charlie, who scares the absolute living shit out of me.
No, Charlie would be a dumb one.
You're the pole.
And I'm the pole? Okay.
Yeah.
You're goofy.
Indie couples costume.
Yeah, that's my favorite. Is that your favorite scene?
I mean, I would say the end is certainly where I feel the most disturbed, honestly, from Tony, like, kind of, like, hiding in the rafters and...
Oh, like, Peter, crawling along the walls?
Yeah.
That's one of the scariest scenes in the movie.
That scares the fuck out of me.
And then banging your head on the...
Yeah, absolutely insanely scary. And I have actually been thinking about that a lot in the middle of the night whenever I go to pee. There's a certain area of our ceiling that I keep a vigilant watch because I am afraid that there's a lady up there.
Look. Second favorite scene, when Peter gets into the attic and you just start to hear like the little at first, and you're like, what is that noise? And then he looks up and it's just his mom decapitating herself with piano wire and like speeding up. That is one of the like that's another shot burned in my brain that just it's so scary to see. And they leave enough off screen to like let your imagination do enough of it, but just like her hands just like moving really fast, like cutting her own head off, is really upsetting and something I never thought I would see.
Yeah, I didn't need to see it.
No, that's what makes it good.
And that's why I didn't look.
Oh.
I guess if I'm not gonna say the ending, I would say from Charlie being decapitated to Tony Collette finding the body and then seeing her on the floor screaming.
Just masterful filmmaking from someone who's really good at what he does.
I think it just like is extremely emotional, and it shows how grief is affecting both of them, both Peter, who's in shock and can't really process it yet, and then Toni Collette, or Mom, who is obviously grieving the loss of her child and like cannot believe that this is real and would rather
the dad who
be
just
dead
shuts it all out.
Yeah. Like, Tony's like, I'd literally rather be dead than have a deceased child. And then Dad is like, not present at all. Because that's how men are in horror movies.
Well, that's part of theming, so let's talk about theme now.
Yeah. Grief and loss.
Let's do grief first. There's a lot of themes.
Yeah.
I think grief, you just hit the nail on the head, is that everyone processes differently. And in my description, it's that as well. Mom blames Peter and becomes resentful towards her son and family. Dad tries to just act like nothing happened and act normal. And Peter becomes very depressed and just drifts through life, like uninterested in the things around him.
Yeah, like there's a scene of him smoking weed with friends at school and they're all talking and he's just kind of like, he's there, he's doing the marijuanas and he is just like kind of sullen and not speaking. And it also shows he has a lot of, like, he starts having panic attacks in that scene where he's smoking the weed, but then there's one later in the movie as well that's just kind of showing like these feelings of anxiety that are hitting him as well.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, so you kind of get the whole
movie's
range.
Yeah. And like different people's reactions. Mom goes even far enough to then try to fix her family's relationships in like ways that aren't helpful at all.
I mean, she literally goes to the point of having a seance because she wants to be able to communicate with her deceased child. And that is pretty severe inability to accept.
Yep. I also want to say there are a ton of themes in this movie, so if we miss any of ones that you're thinking, sorry. Leave a comment.
Yeah.
Because we're going to try to touch on what we can.
We can only get so deep with so much.
Yeah. Let's talk about the big one, the name of the movie.
Hereditary, mental illness.
Yes.
And also tied into that, generational trauma.
I think that's the big one. But enlighten me.
Well, obviously, mental illness clearly runs in her family. I read the quote earlier, her mother, her father, and her brother all have mental health diagnoses, and we can assume that genetically she would also be she would genetically be predisposed to mental health diagnoses as well. I think it's pretty clear throughout the film that she has some sort of diagnoses. And I think it's also this concept of like, what did I do by having children? Because I know that I'm predisposing them to that risk as well.
And we can say payment is the allegory for it. Payment can be the allegory for this mental health.
Yes.
Because by having children, like by Toni Collette having children, she is possibly exposing them to her mother, who would expose them to the coven or try to get them to be Payment's host.
But then also if you think about like if they literally had those diagnoses, it's the same.
Correct. Yeah,
so both. It works either way.
I think, yeah, it is interesting because it's not just subtext in this movie. Like, they're noted to have like some kind of
but then their diagnoses kind of sound like mom.
Maybe it could just be that. And I think that's kind of the point. Mm-hmm. But we find out in the movie that like Tony even tells Peter, like, I never wanted you.
Yes.
And it's so messed up. And she's passing along like generational trauma that she has from her mom to him. But it's also she never wanted him and tried to have a miscarriage because she was trying to protect him.
Yes.
She didn't want Payment in his body. She knew subconsciously.
Ill.
Yes. Or have a demon. Or if they're the same thing in this sense. And it's like, but by having him and not wanting him, she then treats him like shit. Right? And like has this bad relationship same way she had a bad relationship with her mom. So another hereditary thing is to pass along this generational trauma. Right?
Well, I still have more to say, even with the mental illness part. When she is at her support group, she says, I am to blame. I am blamed. And I think that those statements kind of serve two different things. Like, I am to blame. Like, she kind of feels like it's her fault for not protecting her family and her children. Which in this case, like, again, with Peter, it could be like, it's my fault for having children. Or it's my fault for not protecting them from my mother, who's harming them. But also, I am blamed because, like, society will blame mothers and family for their children's traumas, whether they're related or not. So I think that it goes with both the mental illness and the familial trauma there, where like she is recognizing that is something extremely challenging that she's going through. Even when she goes to, like, to your point about, like, the familial trauma, like, when she goes to the support group, it's not really about, like, the current loss of her mother. She's just talking about all the ways her mom fucked her up, and then how she is afraid that she is fucked up and fucking up her kids. That's kind of how I take that whole scene.
I think Ari Aster hates his parents.
Yeah.
But again, we haven't seen Beau is Afraid, but I've heard there are similar themings in that. And it's like, yeah, I don't think he likes his parents very much.
No, I don't think
and
so
he
either.
clearly had a very bad breakup looking at Midsommar.
Yeah,
at
man's
some
been
point.
through it. Along with the familial trauma, I think in there is also, like, mother manipulation and, like, specifically relationships with your mother. Because I think it's obviously about her relationship with her mother, who very much manipulated her over time. And then also the ways in which then we see her kind of manipulating her own children. Specifically thinking about the dinner table scene where she's yelling at Peter.
That scene is
It's hard to watch.
another gut-wrenching, because everyone's been through something like that.
Yes.
I feel like with a family member,
Yeah.
especially with a parent, where it's like the parent is just not being the bigger person and clearly picking a fight with their kid because people are human and flawed, and it like hits a little too close to home for a lot of people. And like definitely, like I'll be honest, I don't think I've had too many situations like that, but like I've seen it with other people, and it really like makes me like want to cringe into myself. Yeah.
The specific dialogue from that is, "Don't you ever raise your voice at me, you little shit," after, like, she is antagonizing him.
Yeah.
She also says, "I wish I could shield you from the knowledge that you did what you did." And then she says, "I can't accept and I can't forgive because nobody admits anything they've done." So she's very much, like, putting this blame on him, which, like, yeah, he was driving the car. But did he give her the peanuts? Did he tell her to put her head outside? Like, he was just taking her to get help. What did he do wrong? He literally didn't do anything wrong. And obviously, like, she's
And
grieving,
he goes,
so
"Well,
it's extremely hard.
She didn't want to go to the party, Mom. Who made her go? Because Mom forced her to go."
Yes.
Yeah. I'll also say, since I said that, no, I was just shouting out my mom because you didn't actually do that. If I made it sound like you ever did that.
No, you didn't.
You're great.
You made it clear.
All right. Well, I want to make it. And hi, Mom. She listens.
Hi, Kate.
All right. Go ahead. You're great.
Love you. Thanks for listening.
Love you.
But yeah, like, specifically, I wish I could shield you from the knowledge that you did what you did. She's like, "I want to protect you,
it
but you
hurts.
fucking did this.
I want to go to
like,
lay down.
You killed your sister, dude." Like, it's so manipulative when he is clearly hurting and struggling so much.
And he's just not grieving in the way that his mom wants him to grieve. Mm-hmm. And, like, she just doesn't acknowledge the fact that other people can grieve. It's not all about her. Mm-hmm. I really, and I want to know if another time I watch it, if I'll side with her more. But in this most recent watch, like, Toni Collette's character, I found, like, kind of despicable in some ways, like the way that she treated her son. And maybe that's probably the read you're supposed to get, but it, like, really, like, got under my skin.
See, I have a hard time being like, it's despicable. Like, it's not good.
You're right.
It's
You're right.
not
Despicable.
good parenting,
I'm being
but at the same
hyperbolic.
time, like, she clearly needs a prescription and therapy.
Yes. And not a seance, not
a
Jones
seance.
therapy.
Yeah, I find it, really hard watching characters with, like, unresolved mental illness, and, like, because that's what I do for a living, and I also have my own, like, mental health diagnoses, I have, like, a lot of sympathy towards characters that are going through that, even if they then do really shitty things as a result of that. But, like, that's the nuance of being a person, baby!
Yep.
But yeah, she's not parenting very well. And then when she does kind of take a turn where she realizes, like, I feel like she kind of does turn it around, where then she's, like, giving a fuck about her kid and wants to protect him later in the movie. But at that point, she's, like, then becomes possessed, so it's kind of too late. R.I.P.
Yeah. And I think all this does tie into, like we said, the generational bit of it, where it's like she clearly wasn't treated well by her mom, so she doesn't treat her kids well. And it takes one person to break that. Right? Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, Peter will not get the opportunity.
Yeah, because he's a demon.
Yes.
I've been trying to think about, like, how her... You know how she, like, almost set him on fire?
She was trying to protect him. She tried to, if you haven't seen it, she sleepwalks and tries to put paint thinner. Or she does pour paint thinner on Peter and then lights a match, and herself.
She, like, wakes up as she's lighting the match.
She wakes up, yep.
And do you see that as, like, trying to protect him for what's to come?
Correct. She's trying to subconsciously trying to protect him from him being turned into Paimon herself as well.
From the loss and the pain.
And that's probably what her brother was doing. If we read it from the Paimon perspective, is he's protecting himself.
Yeah.
And that's what Dad was doing. Because Mom, Queen Lee, was Psycho Lady. And not in terms of mental health, in terms of resurrecting a demon to get her riches, which apparently she did. And then she was wearing a wedding gown in one of the photos, so I don't know if Paimon was like her husband, sort of, too. Like,
that's what's very interesting is, like, Paimon is her husband.
It's her family.
Her husband, but then also... Paimon is in her grandchild.
She also just had family to try to, like, get Paimon.
Yes.
Which is another generational trauma thing.
Yeah, it's very self-serving. Like, I'm only having kids and then wanting my kid to have a grandchild for my own, like, benefit.
This movie's so gross.
Yeah, I love it.
So you got another note there about free will. Tell me about it.
Yeah, I think that's one of the other major themes of this movie.
And I touched on this a little bit with the
dollhouse. So Annie makes the, like, miniatures throughout the movie. So she'll make, like, a scene, and...
One of the scenes being her child getting decapitated.
Which she says she's, like, basically making it to, like, process.
She said it's an unbiased view or something.
She says it's an unbiased view of the accident. Dad's like, what if Peter sees this? Like, what the fuck? And she's like, it's an unbiased view. Like, why is this mean to Peter?
Yeah, it is.
He's like, girlfriend, your son was there. Like, maybe you shouldn't let him see that. So
she really does need some therapy. Sorry.
Yeah, from day one, but especially as we get further into the movie. But yeah, I think the way that the dollhouse is, like, continuously shown, and it'll, like, scenes will transition from the miniatures to the characters, and there will also be, like, some of, like, the B-roll shots or, like, the setting shots of, like, far away, like, looking at the house, but that is also a lot of times, like, supposed to look like the minis, or literally are the minis in some points, and that's essentially just showing how, like, all of these characters are being manipulated by forces outside of themselves. They're essentially just dolls in a dollhouse. They don't have any agency. Clearly, like we said, Annie's mother set this up long before her death. And, like, no one has any control anymore because of what she's done. I also think you can see that throughout the movie with, like, the cult symbol is on the pole that Charlie's decapitated with. Like, it was always supposed to happen that Charlie would die so the spirit could move into Peter. And then Joan also, like, becomes a part of Annie's life and, like...
She, like, infiltrates
her life, and Annie thinks this is, like, a safe and helpful person that's helping her through her grief. But again, it's just another manipulation and another way that she doesn't really have control. Mm-hmm. You have more to add to that?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head with everything. I want to touch on the gender theme really quick. I have one thing I want to say about it, and I think it'll be good. All right, here's my thought. If this entire cult can control this family's life just to kill their host and do all this work to get their demon the proper body, the proper preferred gender, then you can respect people's pronouns. That's what I'm saying.
Oh my God.
You can respect people's pronouns. You can treat people with dignity and respect. And that's all I'm going to say on it.
Okay. What do you think, speaking of, like, a gender analysis,
I just said that was the only thing I was going to say on it.
No,
okay.
I have more to say than that. Specifically with, like, men versus women, since Paimon needs to be in a man's body.
Not needs, prefers. They make that very clear.
No, he essentially needs her. They wouldn't have killed Charlie.
I don't see it that way. I thought it was a preference, but I don't know.
Okay, I guess.
I think that Paimon is just that. Yeah, that's just the. I don't know. It's a demon. They're not
and why did they
fully
need to
gendered.
kill Charlie?
Because they're doing what their demon wants.
Sounds like he might need, I don't know, whatever. Wants, needs, doesn't matter to me. But clearly, like, this Cole is seeing, like, the male body as preference over a female body, which, like, that's not new, so cool. But what do you think about the symbolism of... First, the symbolism in general of decapitation in this, because there's, like, several decapitated bodies and the decapitated bird, but then specifically it's only the women that get decapitated, besides the bird. Like, do you think that's significant?
I don't. I don't know. I'm not something I, like, thought too much about.
Yeah, I know. I just kind of sprung that on you. I was thinking about that, though. Like, I don't know what to do with that, I guess. So if you have any thoughts on...
Decapitation is typically seen as, like, a clean death. Meanwhile, Dad gets burned alive. That was usually reserved for women, right? In terms of, like, execution, like witches and stuff.
Witch trials, yeah.
And even not just witch trials, like Joan of Arc was burned to death, like things like that. Heretics, I feel like that's, like, very... And, like, decapitation was more seen as, like, clean.
I'm wondering if it's, like...
It's, like, a dignified death.
Thinking about the source of, like, identity being in your brain, so Charlie's head needed to come off kind of thing.
I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't have anything to add to this one.
Okay. I was just wondering if you had thought about it at all. I feel like if we think about that more in depth when we do like a reflections episode, that would be something interesting to go back and touch on. Just because I don't know, and I feel like it has to be significant because there's so many examples of decapitation. Again, the bird.
I thought that was just foreshadowing.
Yeah, it could just be foreshadowing. Charlie. But then, like, why is Grandma's head gone and why is Mom's head gone?
Probably because that's what happened to their demon, right? Their god. So they're imitating it. It's a form of flattery or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's my read currently. I can't come up with anything on the spot.
Or is that just how, like, demon escapes to move into its new host because Toni Collette is possessed and then it leaves her when she's decapitated?
Is it Paimon? I never even realized if it's Paimon.
I don't know. Who else would be possessing her?
No, that's a good point. That's who she let in. It was Charlie talking as Paimon. I do think it's... We're going back and it's fascinating that Charlie this entire time has been Paimon, especially because Charlie's so weird.
Charlie's a little freak. Paimon's a little freak.
Yeah. But, like...
I will say, she really crushed it. Like, Millie Shapiro. She originally was on Broadway in Matilda. And then she did this movie, and that's kind of all she's done, and I feel bad because she's clearly extremely talented.
Yeah, she's good. Let's get her in something else. Get her back on Broadway.
I'd see her.
Yeah?
Let's go, Queen.
All right. You ready to do ratings? Oh, is there anything that didn't work? We didn't really cover that. I don't know if I need to say anything that didn't work.
No.
It won't work for people because it's upsetting.
Yeah.
And that's reasonable. If that doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you.
I just, like, it really confuses me how people could say it's not scary. Like, I hid so much. And I screamed many times.
All right. Ratings. I go first? You want to go first?
Me?
You want me to go first?
Yeah, yeah. I like to cheat off of you.
I am going to give this movie an 8.75.
What?
Yeah,
Why?
it's good. I like it a lot.
You can't think of a single bad thing to say.
Yeah, I just feel like an 8.75. All right, you want to round up to a 9?
This is the first time you've ever done a 0.75 either.
I know. I was feeling very conflicted. 8.5 felt too low. 9 feels too high. It's good. It's not as good as Midsommar. Midsummer's a 10. There's a lot of other horror movies I like better, so it's like hard to put it next to something. It does a lot of things well. It's not for everybody. I think that with this one, the more I watch it, I enjoy it probably about the same, or with something like Midsommar, the more I watch it, the more I like it. So maybe that's part of it.
I feel like the more I've watched this, the more I've liked it. I think it
But
makes
have you been less scared?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, I have not.
The first time I saw it was like earth-shattering.
Yeah, no,
because
that's
it was just,
how I feel still. I feel like I still feel the same level of fear and disgust, which are, like, How I like to
Oh, it
feel
definitely
after
makes me
a horror
feel
movie.
things. Maybe that's also why I struggle to give it a higher score, is because it is doing its job, but I don't like it.
But it's not pleasant.
It's not pleasant.
not
Fine,
pleasant.
9. I give it a 9 out of 10. You convinced me.
And because of that, like, do I find this pleasant? Do I, like, get excited to watch it? I don't know about that. So that's kind of where I'm conflicted. I'm kind of between a 9 and a 9.5 because I think it's a near perfect movie. It's just
Have
like...
you rated everything we
icky
watched
poos.
higher than a 9?
I don't know.
Midsummer. Oh, no, excuse me. Midsummer. You probably rated 9.5.
Yeah, I really like the Babadook too, so I feel like I did a 9.
I rated the Babadook under a 9.
Huh.
Pretty sure.
My ratings are always garbaggio. Like,
All right,
I'm pretty sure...
Give it to us. It's time to be done.
I'm pretty sure every rating I've thought back and been like, that was wrong. Like Saw, I think I rated it wrong, which is the last one we recorded, but whatever.
Depends on the day.
Yeah, it does. So today, I'm between a 9 and 9.5. I think this is a work of art. Ari Aster is fucked up.
And hates his parents.
My man's. And
I'm sure he's in it.
Yeah.
You don't put this stuff to paper unless
Yeah, that's true.
unless you get someone helping you work it out, right? All right, 9.25, is that your final?
I don't know.
Give an answer. You have to give an answer. I'm not. I don't.
No, I can't.
You have to.
Shut the fuck up.
This is a rule.
No.
You can't. You're
My
ruining the
podcast.
integrity.
It's my podcast. I can do what I want. All right. Hi, I'm Hannah.
I'm Matt, and I'm upset with the ending of this.
Thanks for joining.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning into Horror Hour with the Hannahs. Make sure to listen to future episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube, and follow for additional content on TikTok or Instagram at Horror Hour with the Hannahs. If you like the podcast, please leave a positive review on your favorite podcasting app. Happy hauntings!